Hello everyone, welcome to our Thursday night Facebook Live. Alyssa here, nutritionist and gut expert. And tonight I'm coming in to tell you all about my experience with IBS. So, you know, I've had so many of you guys over the years asking me what the heck went on with my gut, how did I fix it? And you had all the questions, the one that I get most often is, how did you go from being an opera singer to a poop queen, they call me? So I'm gonna come in and answer all those questions tonight, and I won't lie, I'm a little nervous because this is a really big topic to cover in 30 minutes or less. And I really want to make sure right from the front end here that you know that my journey is different from yours. And the purpose of this is really to show you that it's definitely possible for you to fix your gut. Absolutely. And the other thing that I want you to keep in mind is that tonight I'm going to share what worked for me, and what I stress so much and what is so important for each of you as individuals is that we have to get you on a customized plan for your individual body. So I'm going to share what worked for me tonight and my whole experience, and how I came about creating the Love and Trust Your Guts program, how I became a nutritionist and gut expert, and that whole journey. Because to be honest with you, when I talk to clients, one of the number one things that I start with is, how long has this been going on for you? And I'll ask someone, you know, how long have you been struggling? And they usually will give me, you know, a time frame. It'll be 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. My goodness. And one of the things that's been really interesting that I've observed over the years is that the time frame that they give me is not usually the time frame that they've been suffering for. It's the time frame that has been intolerable. It's the time frame in which it started to affect their quality of life. So what I mean is, they'll tell me, Alyssa, I've been suffering for 10 years. But when we start to really dive in deeper, what we realize is they've been having gut issues their whole entire life. And so that's where my story really starts, is way back when I was a kid. And you know, the interesting part is that these two over here are distracting the crap out of me. I've got Eric making a coffee, and Miss Via is screaming at him, feed me, meow, 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 feed me. I'm trying to think straight. So just don't mind the peanut gallery in the background. All right, so that's where my story really starts, is that you know, all this gut issue stuff really started long before my fluctuating diarrhea and constipation. So let me just take you way back to when I was a kid. And I grew up in an entrepreneurial home. My parents own an automotive business, an entire distribution company that works throughout central Ontario here in Canada. So that's that. And with an entrepreneurial home, if you have grown up with self-employed parents, or you yourself own a business, then you know hustle time is happening all the time. And Dad, I think I saw you were watching this when I first turned on. If you're still here, love you guys. Appreciate everything that you guys have always done for me. And with that, I know how hard it was working through all that, now growing my own business. And so one of the things that really happened for us growing up as kids is meals were tricky, and we weren't always home for dinner time. And so we spent a lot of time going through the fast food drive-through. I remember, you know, my parents, it was so important to them that they gave my sister and I many experiences. We were so fortunate to have tried many things in our life, whether it be, you know, baseball, which I hated, soccer, hated that too. Anything physical as a kid, forget it, but put me in front of like some paints and I was down. So, you know, I did everything from baseball to soccer to music lessons, from singing, piano. I was fortunate to have a lot of experiences, and I was signed up for a lot of lessons as a child. So our life was really busy after school. So we were either in the fast food drive-thru, or on nights where, you know, my mom, I know she was trying her best, and she would make this, speak of my family, my sister's calling me. So my mom would make this, on busy nights, she'd do chicken, broccoli, rice, and like a can of mushroom soup, and it was like a casserole. And I'll never forget, she'd put it in the oven and she'd set the self timer on it, and there was this one night we came home extra late. I imagine it was probably later than we were supposed to get home, because when we got home it was like, it was burnt. Like the broccoli was crisp. And so we ate it, and that was a really common thing. And then Friday nights would roll around, and Fridays, my parents had been hustling their asses off all week, so Friday was always, we'd eat out. And for many, many Fridays, if you're here in Canada, you know Kelsey's, so we would go to Kelsey's for dinner every Friday night. So, you know, I grew up in a really busy entrepreneurial home. Food was, you know, my parents did their best, but the big thing for me was I was a really quiet kid, and I was the helper. You know, I had a younger sister, she was 5.5 years younger, and I was the helper. I was always helping, and I always was like this little adult. And so between the food situation and my personality of being a little bit of an uptight kid, very quiet, reserved, always wanted to hang out with the adults, I very quickly developed this, I'm gonna say anxious eating pattern, okay? And at the time I had no clue that this was going on. So as I started to grow up, when I was younger, I was quite overweight. And I hit grade 7, hit a bit of a growth spurt, and thinned out a bit. And, you know, bloating, gas was kind of a thing back then, but I didn't think much of it. It was just this embarrassing thing I experienced, and I never told anyone about it. High school was fairly uneventful. Again, I was like the quiet, innocent, somehow I acquired the nickname, the Golden Child. You know, never skipped class. I was the good girl. And, you know, what really happened for me when shit started to hit the fan was when I went into university. But all of this like busy lifestyle, not a great diet, really had started to accumulate throughout my childhood and into high school. And actually I should backtrack. When I was in high school, I'd come home at night, and you know, my parents would still be working. I would like closet eat the Kraft dinner. And so I'd make a full box of Kraft dinner and inhale that and like eat the house before my parents got home, and then they'd come home and I'd eat dinner again. So again, there's a lot of like anxious stress eating happening. So anyways, I get into university, and by university, I'm in an abusive relationship at this point in my life, which lasted just at the 4-year mark, and that ended right in my last year of university. It was an extremely challenging time in my life, and at the time I was studying music in university. I was studying classical music. I'm a trained opera singer, and so I was training vocal performance and music education. And at the time, had you asked me, I would have told you that I wasn't anxious or stressed at all. And I thought I was quite confident, because I would get up on stage and sing in front of thousands of people, no problem. And I had traveled and performed in many different states and provinces, and so I felt like I was confident. And so I'm giving you a bit of the fast track version, but want to give you a snapshot of what had gone on. So this stress continued to build up, especially during that period of time in that relationship in my life. I won't give you the back end details of all that, but knowing that all of that stress really started to blow up. And I'll never forget, it was about halfway through that relationship in my second year of university, we moved in together. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and noticing that my stomach was getting bigger. And I share this weight experience or weight journey with you as well because I really believe weight is a symptom, and it wasn't until I fixed my gut that really started to shift. So anyways, we get through university, I leave this abusive relationship, and I land back in Barrie. And one would hope that by that time I would start feeling better, but that's when everything really started to fall apart for me. My symptoms started to get much worse. I started to experience the fluctuating diarrhea and constipation. I was constantly bloated. Gas was definitely a thing. And my parents, Dad, if you're still watching, I'm sorry, can attest to the irritability, the moodiness, and finally what I could actually acknowledge was the anxiousness and anxiety that really started to hit me and affect me. It was at this point in my life when I was supposed to have graduated from university, and you're supposed to have, you know, your whole life figured out, and apparently, you know, find the job, find the guy, you know, get married, have kids, that whole period of your life where everything's just supposed to fall into place like they promise you your whole life. That didn't happen for me. I got into university, I'm like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? I moved back to my hometown and really fell apart. And it was at this point I lost my voice, not literally, but emotionally. I was just not able to get up on stage anymore and perform. I really lost every part of who I was. And my gut was just a freaking wreck. So at this point, I still wasn't fully aware that this wasn't normal. In fact, many of you guys may have experienced it differently than I did. You know, you are well aware that what you're experiencing isn't normal, and it's affecting your quality of life, and you're feeling frustrated by it, and you're on the hunt for fixing it. For me back then, I still hadn't arrived at that. I still just kind of thought like, oh, you've just been fat your whole life, Alyssa, and every time you eat, you overeat, which is why you feel full. What I didn't realize was, no, I wasn't full, I was bloated. I felt heavy. I felt like I was busting out of my clothes because I was not digesting my foods properly. And because this stress and anxiety from all of these life events that had gone on in my life had been accumulating, and I hadn't been taught how to fix or maintain my gut, it started to get worse. So the part of my story that I share most often was the time that I really woke up and had this epiphany. And that was when my sister was diagnosed with colitis. And she was admitted into the hospital once again, and I remember getting the call, and I rushed to the hospital, and I climbed in the hospital bed with her, and I just believed there had to be a better way. And at the time, I really started searching because I wanted to be able to help her. I wanted to fix her gut. And when I started researching, I started to realize I wasn't just fat. I wasn't just having a hard time, you know, overeating. What was happening was I had a gut problem. And if I didn't get on it and start fixing it, I was going to start heading down that same road as my sister. And I was going to end up with Crohn's or colitis. So anyways, I started searching, and I kept coming across nutrition, and I tried everything. I did the Atkins diet. I did the FODMAP diet. I did this diet called the HCG diet. It's like these drops there. You can't even get them in Canada. I had to like smuggle them into Canada from the States. Like, I did crazy, crazy stuff, guys, desperate to fix my gut. And what all sort of came of that was not much good, because I kept thinking it was food that was causing my gut problems, but it was actually my gut. So when I started to actually wake up and start to realize what was going on, I realized that I needed to hire a professional. All this guesswork wasn't working. It wasn't helping. So what would happen was I would go into a health food store and I'd buy an expensive probiotic, and then when that didn't work, I'd go back and buy something else. And all this guesswork cost me a ton of money, a ton of time, and it started making my gut worse because I wasn't addressing the root imbalances. So I hired a nutritionist and I hired a naturopath, and what ended up happening was I went to both practitioners and I got supplements and dietary changes, and they'd send me home and they said, come back in a month or two. And in the world of angry guts, of diarrhea and constipation, like a lot can happen in 30 days, right? And so I had questions, my symptoms were changing, and I had no support. And it became really frustrating. So I kept searching and searching. And throughout all this, I started to change my diet even more. I found another online nutritionist who was promoting plant-based eating. So I actually became plant-based for 8 years. But in that, I started to lose a bit of weight, and I started to catch on to there was some underlying things going on in my body, like inflammation, and that I was struggling to digest my foods. So I started to address those. I started taking things like apple cider vinegar. I started to take a probiotic, but I also started addressing the diet and also getting into some of the underlying issues that were happening for me. And as this started to happen, I went for further testing and found out that I had a candida overgrowth that was really bad. I didn't just have that candida overgrowth, I had a fungal overgrowth too, because I was eating mushrooms. Like I was eating way too many mushrooms at the time. I loved making homemade mushroom soup. So I had a candida overgrowth, I had a fungal overgrowth, I had parasites, my stomach was underactive, and I had leaky gut. So it was a big mess. So I started doing more and more research and really starting to get to fixing all these underlying imbalances. And the most amazing thing started to happen was I started dropping weight, and it wasn't even my goal. I wasn't trying to lose weight, I was just trying to fix my gut. And over that period of time, I lost 70 pounds without doing any exercise. Now, I'm not promoting no exercise, but I'm sharing that with you because I want you to understand the power of fixing your gut. Because again, weight is a symptom. So I lost 70 pounds, and in this, I realized like, I need to go back to school. Like I need to pursue this. I need to help people with this, because all these years I was suffering and I didn't even realize. And in all of this, another thing that really started to surface again was this anxiety that was crippling. I would wake up every morning and it felt debilitating. And even while I was fixing my gut and getting progress, this anxiety still really remained. So I started to also go to a therapist and really get help in adjusting some of the emotional traumas and triggers that I had experienced in my lifetime, and learning to heal those, and doing a lot of healing work coming out of that abusive relationship throughout university. So this was, it was such a big healing monster. And so one of the things that I get asked so frequently is like, should I take a probiotic? Should I eat this food? Should I do this? Should I do that? And the thing is it's really tough for me to answer that because every single person is unique and requires different things. But I want you to also know that it's not just one single individual thing that fixed my gut. It had like all of the things contributed, like the therapy was a massive piece to this puzzle. And it's interesting because when we look at something like weight, for example, especially around the stomach where I was carrying it, weight is a protector. It's a protector, particularly around family issues. And so, we want to start to look at what sort of stressors are holding you back. Because when I started to really combine this stress factor, this anxiety factor, and all the physical stuff, that's when things started to really shift with ease. And so if things are feeling hard for you right now, know that you might need to make some adjustments. There might be a piece missing to the puzzle. So by this point, again, I started to address the parasites, the candida, the fungal overgrowth, the leaky gut, the underactive stomach, which were all root underlying imbalances that were keeping me sick, that diet alone was not going to fix. So I went back to school at this point, and my healing journey really continued. My gut journey continued, because at that point I needed to learn how to fix all of these things. And it was in school that I really started to learn that. I started doing further research, and coming out the other end realized that there's this real strong passion for gut health. And so the biggest thing that I really want to run home tonight for you guys is that while I so appreciate everyone's curiosity and knowing all the details of how I fixed my gut and everything, I want... My sister's calling me again. Does anyone else's family do that? If you don't answer the first time, they call you 10 more times? Because my family does that all the time. So what I want you guys to really take away from this is every single person is different and is going to require different support. Okay, that's number one. So please don't be upset that, you know, I can't give you a protocol here, because it's irresponsible as a practitioner. I don't know enough about your health history, and I also don't know if you're on medications. I need to know interactions. Like, there's so many things. And for every one question you have for me, I have about 10 more for you. You have to remember, I'm like a detective. I need to go in and figure out all that's going on for you. So I want you to again remember that what worked for me might not work for you, which is why every single one of my clients in the Love and Trust Your Guts program is on an individualized protocol. The second thing that I want you to remember is that stress and anxiety are such a huge contributor. And they were absolutely critical in my healing journey. There's so many things that I want to tell you, want to share with you, that just can't all be squeezed into a 30-minute Facebook Live about my experiences around stress and anxiety. And if that's something that you're interested in, more than happy to share more details on that on another night. Maybe we can do an anxiety night. But that was something that was really holding me back, that I didn't even realize was affecting me. And I want you to remember that that isn't a personal, or that isn't just something that happens for me. That happens for everyone. You know, stress and anxiety studies have shown deplete your good bacteria and your digestive enzymes, and they will throw out your gut. So when it comes to fixing your gut, we have to focus on fixing the physical body, but we also have to work on the emotional body that is often keeping the gut in this broken cycle. So that's the second thing I want you to take away. The third thing that I want you to know is that I have this free, awesome gift for you that I want to give you, because I know you have so many questions, and I know that you want more support. And so I want to give you as much as possible in helping you start kicking these symptoms to the curb. And so I've put together a free IBS Be Gone cheat sheet. You can grab the link in the comments above. And when you click on that and you download your copy, I share my top foods, supplements, and strategies that have been tremendously helpful in not only fixing my gut, but also things that I really encourage each of my clients to incorporate into their complete gut repair system. And so you really want to download it, because it's such a great place for you to start. And then after you've started rolling out those things, I want you to reach out to me. Send me a private message or email me at support@alyssalabrecque.com and let me know how you're doing. Give me an update so that we can then support you in making a few customizations to keep you moving forward. So I hope this was helpful, guys. I hope at the end of the day, you know that you're not alone. Today is like, it feels like a past life. You know, being an opera singer, I would say, feels like a past life. I've worked so hard. I've come through so many challenges in my life, and I just want you to know that you're not alone, that I see you, and I know that you're working so hard, and I know that it sucks. I know that these gut symptoms are really making it hard to put a smile on your face, and I know that it makes it hard to go to work and feel your best self. And I want you to know that you can absolutely do it. So if I can do it, if hundreds of my clients can do it, then you absolutely can fix your gut. So if you've got questions, guys, you know where to find me. Reach out. You're not alone in this. Let's do it together. I hope you guys have an amazing night, and we will see you next week. Bye.